Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Southerner's Northern Garden. So today I'm going to be moving my raspberries and blackberries out of my earth boxes into a new Vego garden bed that I assembled earlier this morning in my living room. And so these are container blackberries and raspberries from Bushel and Berry. I only have currently one variety of raspberries and one variety of blackberries on the market. But what I really like about them is they do stay smaller. I have gotten fruit off of these. These are a couple years old, but they also are not thorny. And so if you're looking to just to get a little handful of fruit here and there off of some bushes, even on your patio containers, these are a great option. So I don't know how easily these are going to come out of these earth boxes. I have my little trowel here, but we're just going to try and dig them up. And then I'm going to put these in the same bed, but I'm going to separate half of it with blackberries and half of it with the raspberries. Raspberries and blackberries both spread by canes. I don't have a lot of experience with them other than planting them in these earth boxes a couple years ago, but you can see they're starting to leaf out and get some green on them. And I also picked these up at Sam's Club a few years ago, and I actually went last week and picked up a few more from Sam's Club because they sell them as like tiny starts, and so I got them from there. You can also buy the full-size plants in gallon containers or whatever, but that was a cheap way to get started because I think you get 2 plants for like $20 or something. And after a couple years, that's how these look in this container, and they've completely filled up, at least the raspberries have. And so I'm going to give them a bigger home so I can get more berries out of them this year and next year and years to come. So let's see what we can do here. I'm just going to try and, I've got my gorilla cart sitting right here next to me, and I'm just going to try and dig down and get as much of this out as I can. I may divide it into 2 sections. So I will come through and clean out these earth boxes and add some fresh potting soil in the coming weeks, and that way I can add more peppers or lettuces to this area of the bed. I just wanted to get these out of here so they could thrive a little better in more soil since they've been in here a few years. We have a ton of planes flying overhead today. I'm not sure what's going on, but it's kind of loud because of those planes. So I'm going to try and get these blackberries out as well, and then we're going to move them to the back in the Vego garden beds. So for anyone who might be interested in the earth boxes, they are simply boxes that have a grate at the bottom, and the bottom's filled with water all the time via this tube, which you can water yourself or purchase the valves to automatically refill it when it goes low, which is what I do. They're just not out for winter at this point, but they work really well if you have a small garden space, or you know, if you're just looking to take a hands-off approach to watering. I found they worked really great for me, at least these couple years. And I just have them built on a ledge. They're about, you know, a foot or so deep, and we put them on a ledge and wrapped it with wood. So my dad helped me with that project several years ago, and they have been in this location for probably 4 years now. So they've done a really good job for me growing all my herbs and all my peppers down this way every year. And so we'll be able to add some more things here now that we're getting these blackberries and raspberries out into a different bed. So as a YouTuber, just know that for some reason, every time I try and create a video, there's some noises going on. The dogs are barking next door. Right now it seems like there's an air show above my house and the planes keep circling. But these are the raspberries, or these are the blackberries, and these are the raspberries by Bushel and Berry. And so this one's called Raspberry Shortcake, and honestly, I'm not a raspberry person. I will not eat raspberries from the grocery store. I don't think they taste great, but I was eating these off the vine last year when it produced fruit. And so I guess you could say, as my friend Jess says, store-bought raspberries taste like disappointment. Well, these are really delicious, and even though they're smaller plants, as you can see, they're intended to kind of fit in a container. They do produce pretty good berries. And the blackberries, I didn't get a whole lot of blackberries last year. I got way more raspberries than I did blackberries, but I'm hoping with this extra space I'll be able to get some more blackberries. But this one's called Baby Cakes, also thornless, and a great patio variety if you just want to keep it in a container. They do spread like regular blackberries or raspberries do by rhizomes. And so if you don't want to put them in a container, just be careful planting them out in your landscape because they will spread. You'll have to pull them. So just a word of caution there. The blackberries are in these bags here. The raspberries are actually growing shoots up. The blackberries are not, but I just got 2 extra plants so I could kind of spread them out evenly here. And I'm going to plant the raspberries on one side and the blackberries on another. And I have some strawberries coming in the next few weeks. And I'm probably going to line the outer edges of this bed with strawberries and potentially the bed behind me, just so I can have some strawberries as well back here and doing some fruit production. So let's see if we can get, I will probably plant the blackberries first since they were giving me such a hard time. We'll just plant them over here to the right. It's supposed to rain some this week. I haven't connected my water hoses yet because it's still freezing weather potentially this month. And so I'm not going to water these in or anything since they are bare root, or these are essentially bare root. They got a little soil around them. It's going to rain and it will water everything in for me this coming week. So let's get started. And these extra raspberries I have here, I'm just going to kind of put one on each side here. I want to keep them kind of, the plants kind of separated, the blackberries and raspberries. I didn't put a divider in the bed or anything so that the roots didn't mix. So if this eventually just becomes a big container of raspberries and blueberries, or raspberries and blackberries mixed, it doesn't bother me too much. But there's what you can expect. It's mostly the roots you're concerned about, which these look really healthy. I don't have the best luck getting plants like this from Sam's. Particularly strawberries. My strawberries have never been successful from Sam's that I've gotten that are like bagged like this. But these came from Sam's, and so they did really well. Root system looks really healthy, does have a little bit of growth. And so we're just going to get these planted in and they should take off pretty well. And if they don't, I have these others for backup. I probably should have waited and put all of this soil, or a lot of extra soil, in here when I was done, because I think I overfilled this bed a little bit, but I can move some into my other bed next to this. And so I think I overestimated and probably didn't even need these extra raspberries, but I bought them, so we're putting them in anyway. All right, so now that those are planted, let's talk a little bit about this Vego garden bed. So I purchased my first Vego garden bed last late winter. I scoured the internet for metal raised garden beds because wood prices last year and the year before, as you know, were really, really expensive, and they kind of skyrocketed. And then I also had a wood raised bed in my vegetable garden, and I just noticed there was some decay already, and it's only a few years old. So I wanted something that would last, and so I sought out these metal raised garden beds last year. Now, I have loved them so far. The first one I bought was the one the camera's sitting in. It's the one my dahlia project went in last year. And then the second bed I bought was the blueberry bed next to the shed that you've seen. Because of our high alkaline pH soil, I can't grow blueberries in the ground. They just don't thrive. And so in a raised bed, I can control the pH of the soil a little better, give those blueberries and lots of other berries the acidity that they need, and they'll be much happier. And so this bed I bought this past winter. I think it may have been December, early January. And this was the kids' raised bed. And so it was rather inexpensive, like $120 for a nice, deep 17-inch raised metal garden bed that'll last a really long time. And so what happened was I had an extra panel, an extra 2 panels from also the raised metal garden bed I have in my vegetable garden. So I actually have 4 of these beds. So I added a 6-in-1, it may have been a 9-in-1 to my raised vegetable garden bed, and it was too long, it wouldn't fit the space, and so I saved 2 panels, took 2 panels out of it and set them in the basement. I was like, I'll buy another garden bed in the future and they can be used in the future on that. And so that's what I did here. So this is the kids' bed, but it's one extra panel long because I saved the panels from last year for that last bed and added them in. So this bed is the same exact size as the garden bed in my vegetable garden. It's about 5.5 to 6 foot long and 2 to 2.5 foot wide, which is a really nice space for growing lots of food, but it's also really deep, which my regular garden beds are 12 inches deep-ish, and I've never grown any carrots or anything, but these would be great to grow carrots in. Now, as far as filling these raised garden beds, because this one didn't take as much soil as the one the camera's sitting in, the one the camera's sitting in is a 10-in-1, which is really large, and I actually used the 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 method when I was putting dirt in there to save on the cost of dirt. My neighbor had some old firewood. I lined the bottom with old firewood, and then I lined on top of that perennial cleanup from the year, so like just old perennials that had been cut back. And then I put my raised bed mix on top of that and potting soil and filled it up to the top. This one I chose not to go that route because the soil at Costco was on sale this year, and this only took 7 50-quart bags. And so if you were getting the regular kids bed, it might take between 4 and 5 50-quart bags, but 7 filled this slam full. I have 1 bag left over because I purchased 8 because I thought it might take 8, but I will use that extra bag in the bed that's in front of me here. Because since it was done with the 𝗟𝗶𝗸𝗲 method, the soil levels dropped a little bit over the past year, and it needs to be refreshed a little bit. So if you're looking at getting a Vego garden bed, I have a coupon below in all my videos for 5% off. I don't know, I think their supply chain is going to be better this year. They were a newer company based out of Texas, and last year kind of really took off, and they had supply issues, particularly when everyone else was having supply issues. But if you're looking at getting one, I would go ahead and grab one just in case they encounter supply issues again with demand. I think they'll be able to keep up this year now that they know what they're working with, but there's always that chance of supply chain issues. So I really love these. I have 4 in my garden, not 3 in my garden, and they have worked really well for me. In the spring, when I get my drip irrigation activated, I actually have a drip line directly below me, and I will be running drip to these to get all these water. I am going to be working on this space in general this year, I think. I've mentioned some of my fruit trees are not doing great. There's a cherry tree right here behind me. And I put this here intentionally knowing that those fruit trees may not be here in the next couple years. I'm considering turning this space into a cut flower space. I have landscape fabric down, and it's been down for 2 seasons now, just to suppress weeds. But it's time that I got started putting wood chips down in this area and improving the soil, because I would like to grow more stuff out here that would make me happy. And so I can imagine, a row of zinnias, a row of sunflowers, just things, I'm not going to be selling necessarily. I might offer my neighbors flowers, but things that will make me happy, that I can bring inside and enjoy the garden inside, or that I can give family and friends from time to time. I don't know if that will happen this year. It is kind of it's a triangular space, and so it's kind of an odd shape, but it's still pretty big to bring in a lot of wood chips, and it's not easy to get to behind the house. And so there may just be a little bit here and there that I bring in. But my goal is kind of to clean up the space either this year or the next year and make it a little more productive when I finish with the ornamental gardens up front, whether that production be for more flowers, or for additional food. I planted a lot of tomatoes back here last year. This year I will still be planting tomatoes in this space because my dahlias are getting moved to the vegetable garden up front. And so it'll be like a combination of vegetables and dahlias up there. I will probably end up putting the tomatoes in the bed that you are sitting in, the raised bed, because I think they'll do really good. There's already a cattle panel here to keep them tamed upwards. I did grow some directly in the ground last year, and they do really well. Everything I planted in the ground here Even with heavy clay soil, all the vegetables have done incredible. And so I grew pumpkins a couple years ago, melons a couple years ago. I don't know if I grew melons. I did grow melons last year because I had a really big watermelon. But I want to grow a couple more melons this year and tomatoes in this bed. This will be fruit and strawberries. And I want to do a better job at being a vegetable gardener this year. I think I mentioned that last year or in my January video, seed starting video, about wanting to be a better vegetable gardener. This whole thing that you've seen on my channel started out with a vegetable garden 4 years ago at this time. And it has grown into like this beautiful ornamental vegetable garden mix. But last year the vegetable garden took a little side simply because I was so focused on getting the ornamental gardens put in and getting those grown on. So maybe add some asparagus back here. I really love fresh asparagus. If you've never had fresh asparagus grown from your ground, it is so good. My neighbor across 2 doors down has an asparagus patch that she planted a long time ago. She doesn't even like asparagus, and she brought me fresh asparagus last year. Eating it raw directly out of the ground is life-changing. So I need to get asparagus in the ground too. Asparagus takes 3 to 4 years, you know, before you can actually harvest off of it. So overall goals in this space, potentially add more Vego garden beds to grow above ground if I need to, but also bringing in some wood chips and compost and incorporating it into the ground that's already here so I can grow great things in the ground is also a priority. So thank you guys for joining me. I'm glad this project is out of the way. It's one I've been waiting and ready to get through, just so it's one more thing off the checklist to do this spring. And I hope you will join along as I grow some beautiful raspberries and blackberries this year. And remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Take care. Bye.